Good evening, guys. I am here to do my project on gun control. Me and my group, we all want to own our guns, and so I'm gonna be doing the counter argument for my group. And so, gun control, both in Switzerland and Finland, require gun owners to acquire licenses and pass background checks that include mental health and criminal record, among other restrictions and things they have to do. In 2007, Switzerland ranked number 3 in international gun ownership rates with 45.7 per 100 people. That's about 3,400,000 guns total. In 2009, Switzerland had 24 gun homicides per 100,000 people. 24 gun homicides, which is about 0.31 deaths per 100,000 people, and had 253 gun suicides, which is about 3.29 deaths per 100,000 people. Finland ranked number 4 and had 23 gun homicides and 172 gun suicides. The United States, categorized as having a permissive firearm regulation by the gunpolicy.org, ranked number 1 in gun ownership rates with 88.8 guns per 100 people. That's a big amount for guns. And a big reason for the United States having so much guns is because of the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms. And so, about the right to bear arms, back in the day, the guns weren't as advanced back in the day. They just had rifles, and it took a lot longer time to recoil the guns and just things like that. I mean, that's a big part of the reason why it's never changed, and they just believed that back then it was a right to bear arms for that people who, if they needed to go to war, they'd have those guns ready, and they could go to war for us. Anyways, a Harvard professor, David Hemingway, wrote that we analyzed the relationship between homicide and gun availability using the data from 26 developed countries. From the early 1990s, we found that across developed countries where guns are more available, there are more homicides, according to March 2016 study on guns. Gun homicide rates in the United States were 25.3 times higher, and gun suicides were 8 times higher in 2010 than other populations. Other high-income countries. Additionally, 90% of women are killed by firearms that's about from girls 0 to 14 years old, and 92% of 15 to 24-year-olds, and 82% of all women, of all people killed by firearms were from the United States. Those being women. That's just an outrageous number, which shouldn't be that high, especially for women. Why would these crimes happen to women and involving guns? With this being said, reducing the amount of people who own guns can greatly impact the lives of everyone around us and can make a change and a step in the right direction with gun and human interaction. Now, how do we feel about civilians carrying military-grade rifles, or rifles such as AK-47s, M16s, M15s, AR-15s? How do you feel about that? Well, here I'm going to be talking about what President Ronald Reagan said. President Ronald Reagan said, well, according to Procon, President Ronald Reagan and others did not think the AR-15 rifle, also called the M16 by the Air Force, should be owned by civilians, and when the AR-15 was included in an assault ban of 1994, which expired September 13th, 2004, the NRA supported the legislation. The Second Amendment was written at a time when the most common arms were long rifles, like I stated before, that had to be reloaded after every shot. Civilians today have access to folding, detaching, telescopes, and stocks that make guns more easily to conceal and carry. And they also have things like silencers to muffle gun sounds, flash suppressors for low light situations so that they won't be blinded when they're shooting, and grenade launcher attachments, which is just absurd to believe. And Jonathan Lowy, director of legal action project at the Brady Center to Prevent Gun Violence, stated these weapons that will shred your venison before you eat it or go through the walls of your apartment when you're trying to defend yourself, they're made for mass killing, but not for useful for law-abiding citizens, such as myself and other people around. In the United States, suicides are at an all-time high. Just exactly how are people killing themselves? And with these same guns that we're supposed to use to protect ourselves, people are using those guns to harm themselves. Between 1999 and 2013, there were 270,237 firearm suicides in the United States, accounting for about 52% of all suicides during those years. When the U.S. gun ownership goes down, overall suicide rates drop. Meanwhile, each 10 percentage point increases in gun ownership is linked to 26.9 increase in youth suicide rate. In Indiana, after red flag laws to remove guns from people who may pose a threat were enacted, gun suicides decreased by 7.5% and 13.7% respectively, while suicides by other means did not decrease during the same time. A person who wants to kill himself is unlikely to commit suicide with a poison or a knife when a gun is unavailable. Thank you for giving me your time, guys. I hope you learned something about guns and gun control in general, and I hope you enjoyed.